Okay, so I should be streaming now, but it seems that there is no video. Let's see. Okay, so there is video. Okay, good, good. So I won't start the stream yet. It will be another 10 minutes, but 9 minutes to be precise. But I just want to make sure that everything works and we are good to go. So what do we have here? Everything is visible here. So here I have the text of the presentation. Let me enlarge the fonts for the purposes of this video. And I have the text of it here, and I just copied it, and I need to post it on my website. So you can find it from there as well. So I have everything here. Everything should be fine. So let me make this commit message real quick. And hello, everyone. I add presentation text to latest code log. So that's just it. And let's commit. And we can push. Do I have anything else that I need to push? No? Okay, so let's push the changes right away. For simple commits like that, I am using VC. I have talked about it before in videos. VC.el, it is built into Emacs. But for anything else, I use Magit, of course. Magit is peerless when it comes to this kind of work. So we want to kill this buffer, and we will just be with this one. I hope everything is working properly. I can see myself over here. Though I notice there is a delay, but that's normal. So there should be some difference between when I speak and when you get that message. But I think what matters is that what I say and how my lips move are in sync. So that should be good. Glad to join the stream. Max Kuberful, I think you were in the previous stream as well, so it's nice to see you again. Noble and Savage has those emoji business going on, but I still, to this day, I still don't know how to use emojis effectively. Hello, Avi K. Hello, nice to see you. Hello, good morning. Unfortunately, I cannot read this script. I think it's Arabic, right? But I cannot read it. So good morning to you as well. I have a friend who is a Greek speaker. His mother tongue is Greek, but he has learned all those languages. He knows Arabic, he knows Spanish, he knows Swahili, and maybe others as well. So I should definitely get to contact him and maybe learn something in the process. Just enough time to grab a drink. Yeah, sure, take your time. The stream will be recorded as well, so no worries if you miss it. No problem, no stress. You can always catch up at your convenience at a later time. We can see you and hear you properly. Thank you very much. That's good to know. That's the reason why I just stream a few minutes in advance, just to be sure that everything works. So in case there is something going wrong, I can fix it and be ready in time for the stream. So now we are 6 minutes to 1 o'clock. And as was the schedule, I will start streaming at 1 o'clock. So at 13 hours, I use the 24-hour clock. And I learned that in some parts of the world, they do that. They default to 24 hours. For example, in Belgium, they would say, let's meet at 13 hours, meaning 1 o'clock. So I also use the 24 hours system as well. Oh, it's Arabic. Yeah, that's good to know. I thought I can sort of recognize it, but I cannot read it. And maybe I will learn. And if I learn, that would be great, of course. I don't know if I can do it, but it would be nice to learn another language as well. I know Greek, English. I can also speak and write in French, but I have not practiced it in a very long time, unfortunately. And also a bit of Spanish. And I can also understand what they are saying, people from Portugal and Italy. So that's about what I can do. But mainly Greek and English these days, for better or worse. We have, so everything here is Okay, good. Maybe I could check my website in the meantime to see if it has been updated. This is not up to me. So we have the live stream over here. Let me see. So, okay, so the text is already on my website. I am using Yusuf. Nice to meet you, Yusuf. So I am using EWW here, so the built-in text-centric web browser of Emacs, the Emacs web browser, as it is known. So here is the text. Everything is on my website, so you can check the link. I have a comment in the chat over here. I have pinned it at the top, so you can click on the link and check the text right away. So this is all very nice and helpful. Just like Joseph, but in Arabic. Yeah, Yusuf is exactly like that. And also, for example, Ibrahim is like Abraham, right? And there are other names like that as well. But maybe I don't know any other examples. I cannot think of one right now. But yeah, of course, there is, when it comes to cultures, in history at least, there have always been those melting pots of civilization. So one culture influences another. I think that's normal. EWW is text only, right? It is text and images. So it is not CSS and JavaScript. So basically HTML. I think it's very good. I think I use EWW as my main web browser. So this kind of setup here notwithstanding. So for this kind of purpose, I have Chrome over here, Chromium to be precise, and I also have this graphical window as well, which by the way I cannot set to a light theme and it annoys me greatly. But for my main day-to-day browsing, I use EWW. And I have written some extensions for EWW. I have a video on the matter, and also I have received some patches from Abhishek Paira, and those patches expand the functionality of EWW. And we are thinking of sending some of those patches upstream and to Emacs Git, of course, and so that everyone can benefit from them. We just need to see what exactly we will work on and then start preparing the patches. So, of course, once we do that, you will learn about it. Ibrahim is Abraham, Nu is Noah, Jesus, Isa, Jonas, Yunus, David, okay, Suleiman, Solomon. Okay, Suleiman, Solomon. I didn't notice that connection. Of course, it makes sense. Okay, that's good to know. I live in Cyprus and we are in close proximity here to Arabic-speaking countries, but we don't come in contact with them in day-to-day life, so it's really difficult. There are also some people, due to the war, of course, in the region, you know, in Syria, so there are some people, refugees here as well. But still, it's not easy to get to know another culture that way. You really need to interact with them on a daily basis to really appreciate it. But as I said, this friend of mine knows a lot, and I should get in contact with him and see what we can do. Is Greek easy to learn? I don't know, because it's my mother tongue, but I think especially if you study classics or texts that involve Greek, so in the English language there are many Greek words, I think you will find many familiar words, at least. That's all I know. But when it comes to actually learning the language, I really don't know. I really haven't asked anyone who has learned Greek what they think. What I do know is that migrants who come to Greek-speaking countries, so it's 1 o'clock, we will start, but let me conclude this. Migrants who come to Greek-speaking countries, they pick up the language pretty fast. So people from Romania, people from Bulgaria, from Albania, and from other parts of Europe and the world in general, they pick up the language pretty fast. So I think maybe it's not that difficult, or maybe there are some connections with those languages. I really don't know. So let's get to the presentation, folks. I want to enable the presentation mode. Actually, before I do that, let me show you the contents real quick. So the topic of the presentation is about Emacs and the Unix philosophy, and those are the contents, how I approach the Emacs versus Unix problematic. Unix minimalism is not a dogma. Emacs conforms with the Unix philosophy. The integration that Emacs offers is not bloat. Understanding minimalism in context. And finally, you don't have to switch to Emacs, though you might want to. So let me enable the presentation mode and I will start talking to you. So hello everyone. My name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this live stream, which is being recorded as well, I will talk to you about the Unix philosophy and how Emacs conforms with it while addressing its main usability flaw. The show notes are available on my website. In case you have just arrived for the live stream, I pushed the commit a few minutes ago, so you can find it in this link as well. And if you are on the live chat as well, there is a pinned message and you can get the link from there. I will join the live stream, by the way, after I conclude this presentation, so please interact over there. Please post any questions or remarks and I will get to them later. My approach to today's topic is informed by my experience as someone who had used a combination of a tiling window manager, Tmax, Vim, various ncurses-based programs like Mat or Newsboat, and command line utilities for years before eventually consolidating around GNU Emacs. My perspective when it comes to this issue is further informed by my background as a social scientist and ultimately a philosopher. Not as a programmer, though these days I do code a lot for recreational or educational purposes. In this presentation, I will make arguments against dogmatism, against misunderstandings in what Unix stands for and how it must work in the real world. I will also critically assess the vaunted notions of minimalism and so-called bloat as they pertain to software and discuss what the appropriate attitude should be when we think about these and concomitant issues. The key word is attitude, the disposition we ought to have in order to avoid becoming dogmatic. This is my second video on the topic of Emacs versus Unix. I did one a couple of years ago, shortly after I had switched to Emacs. I have also published an article and the sources are here in case you are interested, though this stream today, this presentation today should cover them and elaborate on them further. The reason I am doing this again is because I keep getting questions about my experience with Emacs. Questions which typically reveal deep-seated problems and assumptions that are either outright untrue or ill-considered. In short, much of this talk will be about theoretical issues. While I understand that coding is a technical endeavor, a technical enterprise, I still believe that there are important insights to be drawn from theoretical work. Insights which will eventually find their application in everyday scenario. Besides, we cannot afford to assume the Unix philosophy as a technical constant when it is clearly formulated as a philosophy. Finally, note that I will participate in the live chat after I conclude this presentation. If you have any questions related to today's topic or any other subject I cover on my website, please let me know. And hello everyone in the chat, I will speak to you soon. So let's proceed with the presentation that I have prepared for you today. Unix minimalism is not a dogma. The Unix philosophy consists of teachings that are based on decades of experience with systems programming. Those are encapsulated in the KISS principle of engineering. This is a general principle, not specific to Unix. And KISS means keep it simple, stupid, or there are variants like keep it small and simple. Unix values specialized tools that can interface with each other to contribute to emergent workflows. Its brand of minimalism rests on the practical consideration of maintainability, both with regard to fixing bugs and conserving programmer time. The Unix philosophy prioritizes modularity and composability over monolith-like implementations. Simple designs can adapt to evolving circumstances, while those that make all sorts of assumptions and have lots of explicit or implicit dependencies are unsustainable over the long term. Unix programmers did not invent all the concepts associated with their philosophy. Humanity had discovered them through eons of continuous experimentation and practical reasonableness. And what better teacher than the vastness of life all around us? Natural systems consist of subsystems, just like our body, forests, oceans, and so on. In nature, we find division of labor, or else the separation of concerns, specialization and compartmentalization, composition of localized patterns into emergent phenomena. Everything is there. This is not to discount the contributions of Unix, but rather to couch them in terms of the wider milieu in which we operate. By framing it this way, we are better prepared to let go of views that are ultimately detrimental to our life, such as the dogmatic belief that the Unix philosophy is impeccable and must not be criticized. Dogma is the misrepresentation of the context-dependent insight as a universal truth. In practical terms, when you find yourself not listening to a counterpoint, consider whether you are giving the other side a fair chance. If not, you are most likely being dogmatic. The Unix philosophy is not the undisputed source of truth. As with every corpus of thought, what we learn from Unix remains open to interpretation. This means that its followers must assume a skeptical disposition. They have to remain open-minded about cases where the principles of their tradition should not be followed to the letter. The practitioner has to exercise judgment and use their discretion to find the right answer for the task at hand. Dogma is the enemy of every school of thought. Consider the difference between the disciple and the grandmaster. The student knows how to faithfully abide by all the precepts of their tradition, whereas the grandmaster not only applies the rules, but understands their underpinnings, and thus knows when to suspend their application and why. In other words, the student is prone to dogmatism because of their enthusiasm coupled with their lack of perspective. And this is important, so let's move on. Emacs conforms with the Unix philosophy. In analytical terms, Emacs has two facets to its being. The one is the Lisp interpreter. We must think of it as the equivalent of a POSIX shell, like bin/sh, or whatever environment we use to execute scripts. With Emacs, we run or evaluate Emacs Lisp code, eLisp. That is all we can do with it, nothing more, nothing less. And the other facet is the interactive environment. This is the counterpart of command line shells like bash, with the difference being that its event loop, which is its interactivity, is more pronounced, more fleshed out, more advanced. Simply put, Emacs is like a shell with superpowers, which looks like a text editor upon first sight. And this is all possible because it is built on top of the Lisp interpreter. Those two aspects of Emacs are woven together into the same application, making it a computing environment rather than yet another text editor or IDE, integrated development environment. Still, the analytical distinction is important in light of the Unix philosophy. As I already noted, Unix is all about sharp and specialized tools that can be combined with one another, modularity and composability. Emacs is such a tool through its Lisp interpreter. Just as it is perfectly fine to have a shell interpreter with which to run arbitrary scripts, it is acceptable to have a Lisp machine for the purposes of evaluating Lisp. Similarly, it is customary to run an interactive shell inside of a terminal emulator. By the same token, it is perfectly reasonable to use Emacs's own interactive environment to interface with the Lisp interpreter. Emacs should not be compared to desktop environments like GNOME or KDE, or to tiling window managers such as i3, BSPWM, DWM, Sway, etc. The reason is that those are wrappers of otherwise disparate programs. They basically bundle different processes inside of a main session, where the joint presence of distinct applications is a mere coincidence. And this is important, as we will soon find out. In contradistinction, Emacs only runs eLisp, and what happens inside of Emacs participates in the same environment. This is best understood by means of an example. If I want to change the font size in my current BSPWM session, so BSPWM is the binary space partitioning window manager, so if I want to change the font size here, I have to edit the configuration file of my terminal emulator, my settings daemon for GTK applications, Firefox, Chromium, this app I have here on the side, and so on and so forth. In other words, those applications do not know that they are all sub-processes of the main BSPWM session. And this is why I said that the fact that they exist together is a mere coincidence. They don't speak the same language. They are not in the same environment in a real sense. Whereas in Emacs, if I change the font size, the effect is propagated across the entire environment. And so on for every other aspect of Emacs, of course. This is not just about fonts. This means that not only does Emacs conform with the Unix philosophy, but it also has the potential to address its main flaw. By following the Unix precepts, we often find ourselves in scenario where there is no integration between the programs we use, while Emacs ensures that we get a singular experience without hacks, and that is an important detail. The same commands, the same fonts and colors, the same paradigms of interaction, and so on. In Emacs, we have uniformity. This makes Emacs an integrated computing environment. Hello everyone in the chat. As I said, I will join you once I conclude this presentation, so looking forward to that. The integration that Emacs offers is not bloat, so-called bloat. And we need to discuss this dubious notion of bloat in software. You will find self-professed proponents of the Unix philosophy dismissing the value proposition of Emacs on the premise that it is just doing too much, and thus it does not abide by the tenets of the Unix faith. This stems from the misunderstanding of treating Emacs as a text editor, which naturally raises questions such as, why should Emacs ever be my Git front end when I already have the command line? Or why use Emacs's windows, so those splits that it is doing, when Tmax is specialized in multiplexing? And questions in that vein as well. This is why I stressed that Emacs is a Lisp interpreter that only does one thing, evaluate Lisp. And so it is capable of all those wonderful workflows like editing code, handling your agenda, doing presentations with plain text like this one, and so on. If you cavalierly talk about bloat in Emacs, you are effectively making the argument that bin/sh is at fault because of what shell scripts the user may be running. Then we have another problem with those who criticize Emacs from a position of, dare I say, ignorance or based on rumors and hearsay. And that is that they themselves do not follow the simulacrum of the Unix philosophy that is their dogma. What I mean by that is that you will often find them using Vim as their text editor. Last time I checked, Vim can do multiplexing, it has a concept of workspaces or tabs, it can spawn a terminal with the term command, and so on. If you think that Emacs violates the Unix tradition because it too can do the things that Vim does, then why do you use Vim? Why aren't you doing everything with ed or with perhaps sed? Or at the very least, why are you not switching to VI, which is closer to what you claim to stand for? Maybe then the problem is that you have misunderstood Unix altogether and are being dogmatic. Take a pause and think how your totalizing, your maximalist claims are detrimental to your own computing experience. If you follow them to the letter, you will be missing out on quality of life advances in software. For what? For what? Plus, you will be tacitly holding that the Unix tradition is flawless, which is nonsense. Make no mistake, Vim, Tmax, Mat, Newsboat, tiling window managers are all excellent programs in their own right. But what about their combination? What about the gestalt? They lack integration. To configure Vim, you use VimScript. Emacs has something like a shell syntax. Mat and Newsboat use something else. Your window manager may communicate with shell commands or might require editing a C header file and so on. It is a bit of everything. And their joint operation is a mere coincidence, as I already explained, because they do not share a common basis. Whereas Emacs only knows how to interpret eLisp, and all you do inside of it is an extension of that basic principle. To the effect that you get what every GNU/Linux power user actually wants. And what a user like that wants is a singular computing experience that minimizes the distance between their mind, what we have here, and what the computer is doing. What better minimalism than that? Let's proceed to the next slide. Understanding minimalism in context. I define minimalism as the attitude of achieving minimum viable sufficiency for a given task. To test whether something is minimalist, we must know what it is designed to do. Design, however, has two sides to it. The first is what the designer thinks is the telos of this product, the end goal, the objective of this program. The second is what the user considers as the end goal of the design. As an example, imagine a sword. The smith who forged it fathomed a telos where the sword is fit as a weapon, or at the very least that it has a cutting edge. Now suppose that some collector buys this item and installs it on their wall for decorative purposes, perhaps to show their wealth and social status. The reasons, the motivations don't really matter. What matters is that this sword is used for something other than what the designer intended. To understand the utility and end goal of this specific sword, we have to account for the context, or as I say, for the constitution of the case. And that is because nothing has a standalone presence. It always exists in a given context, in a given environment, in a given framework, which contributes to its actuality. And for those of you who may be interested, I also have an essay for you to read, one among many others, but something to get you started. The same goes for minimalism, whether it is about software or not. When we assess the minimum viable sufficiency for a given task, we have to consider the foresight of the designer or developer, but also try to anticipate the expectations of users. In other words, there is no innate minimalism that is built into something in itself. Minimalism that is intrinsic to an otherwise decontextualized thing, to a standalone thing, because such a thing does not exist. We must always look at the context. Allow me to tell you a personal experience with Markdown editors from the days I first switched to GNU/Linux in the summer of 2016, so in mid-2016. I wanted something that could center text on the screen, just like I have it over here, and it should have spell checking for English and Greek at minimum. And finally, it should also be able to adjust colors. I should be able to configure colors and the size of the fonts. So in the process of searching for such a Markdown editor, I found several self-styled minimalist apps which would lack at least one of those features which I consider basic. Now you may think that features like changing fonts or colors is bloat, but to me, for example, with the case of changing colors, it is a key usability feature, especially when the designer has not considered applying good color contrast for the purposes of legibility, else accessibility. And by the way, I am the author of the Modus themes for Emacs, which are built into version 28 of Emacs, the next stable release, and those are designed with the highest accessibility standard for legibility. So anyhow, I was searching through all those Markdown editors and I couldn't find what I was looking for. And through the years, I suffered until I found what I am using right now. When software calls itself minimalist, it sometimes means that it actually is incomplete and has not reached the state of minimum viable sufficiency for the task it seeks out to accomplish. And by the by, I will let you connect the dots when marketing folks try to sell you minimalism, try to sell you the lack of features as a good thing. So, the last point over here. You don't have to switch to Emacs, though you might want to. In conclusion, I encourage you to exercise judgment when thinking about how some philosophy influences your day-to-day experience. Do not let yourself fall into the trap of dogmatism and become a victim of your own misunderstandings. In practical terms, always give the other side of the argument the benefit of the doubt. Always keep an open mind and always maintain a dubitative and inquisitive disposition. Emacs is all about integration, and I have already gave some examples, but let me add another one here. In Emacs, we have commands to introspect the environment. So I can invoke a command or by name or with a key binding, which tells me what a specific key combination will do. And this command is described key, by the way, but that's a detail. Or I can call another command which informs me to which keys is a certain function bound to, and it's the whereis command. Whereas in my otherwise Unix tiling window manager, so here in BSPWM, I have no built-in way to introspect what the hotkey daemon SXHKD does when I type in a certain keycord. I have no means of knowing. I cannot introspect it in that way. Similarly, my terminal emulator has no such capabilities, nor do the programs that run inside of it, like Mat or Vim or whatever. Finding what you want is part of the reason you are using a computer, so that you do not have to memorize everything, or that you do not have to go hunting for configuration files or where's the source code. Basic functionality, of course, does not really need that degree of homogeneity that Emacs provides. For instance, grep and sed and less and tar and all those fundamental tools get the job done perfectly well, whether independently or in tandem. The importance of integration, of having everything work together, becomes evident when you operate at a higher level of emergence, where things must work in concert for optimal results. To me, the Unix philosophy is very important. It is what inspires me to separate my programs based on their scope and more generally to avoid duplication of effort. It also guides me to pursue minimalist solutions which are fit for their purpose. Minimalism always has a specific purpose. It cannot be determined in abstract. I also am, however, a pragmatist who understands that the Unix tradition is not a dogma. We can find cases where improvements can be made, such as with the integration of applications. When we have a layer of interconnectedness, such as the one provided by Emacs, we get consistent results for emergent workflows, which ultimately lead to a superior end-user experience. So the question is, should you switch to Emacs? And my answer to that is, it depends. If you need a singular experience that allows you to draw linkages between your various workflows, then I would say yes. What those workflows are and what those linkages may be is a matter of another discussion. This is just another issue altogether. But if you want that kind of thing, then I would say yes, Emacs is the right tool for the job. Otherwise, it really is up to you. Whatever you do, however, do it from a position of knowledge with a clear purpose and remain committed to it. Or the other thing, I haven't written this here, if you don't know about something, pass it over in silence. Don't be loud and vociferous about something you do not know. And as I have here in my presentation, do not follow trends or pernicious, dangerous, harmful memes without applying common sense. Emacs has a learning curve, for sure, there is no doubt about that. But so do all those disparate, those unrelated programs that are glued together in an ad hoc fashion in some GNU/Linux power users setup. You have to work for the good things, and Emacs is one of those. So you have to work for Emacs, you have to earn it. And that's all for today's presentation, folks. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that I covered this topic, and now I can proceed to the chat that we have over here. As I said, this presentation will be available on my website. In the chat here, I have a link, but if you don't catch the chat, also it's on my website. Did I link to it from here? Yes. So it's on my website. It is over here, so you can check it as well. So now we can proceed to the chat and see what we have here. I can enlarge the fonts here. So yeah, what I was saying, I have to enlarge them separately here, separately elsewhere, and all that thing. So if I could do this live chat inside of EWW, that would be fantastic. So yes, I already covered those here at the beginning. Yeah, and let's see. By you once were you discussion? Theseus says, I read blog post by you once where you were discussing something which is like an argumenting technique that omits emotions. Could someone provide a name for that word? I think you are referring, dear Theseus, to dialectics. and we can maybe produce a new buffer over here, and let's close the other one. And the word for that is dialectics. Dialectics, like this, or to be dialectical, or dialecticism. So I think that's the word you mean. And let's close this, and let's disable the presentation. Let me go to my website over here, and let's go to the books. I have several sections in my website. One is the code blog or code log. Another one is for books and the standalone publications, and you can find the rest as well. So if you go to my website, you can search for, or you can just scroll, and you will anyway find this, the Dialectician's Ethos. And this is an essay that I wrote about a year ago, almost to the day. And I think it is very interesting. I think it covers everything for you to get started. You don't need to be a philosopher to read my works. You just need to pay attention to what you are reading, and of course to think things through. But you don't need to be a philosopher. You don't have to know all those esoteric terms, because I don't know them either. I am not an academic. So I have never done what academic philosophers are doing. I have no interest in what they are doing, I must say, because I find it extremely boring most of the time. The kind of papers that they write is papers that I have no interest in reading. There are, of course, some exceptions, but by and large, what comes out in philosophical papers is of no interest to me. So no hard feelings. But yeah, you can check the Dialectician's Ethos, and everything is over here. And how many words is this? About 2,000 words and something. So it's a small essay, a short essay, just for you to get started with the idea. Is this a lightning talk? I'm not sure what a lightning talk is supposed to be. So I suppose you mean short like that. So no, this was about 30 minutes long. So now we can just talk for another hour or whatever. I don't mind. And as I said, this presentation is recorded, so you will find it on my website, code blog. So it's here as well, and I can see it. Thankfully, EWW doesn't run JavaScript. I wouldn't want that. So I just need to update the text over there, but the text of the presentation is here. So I posted it right before doing this presentation. I did it in video. So what we have over here, yes, EWW has pictures and probably GIFs too. It has GIFs as well, but I have those disabled because I absolutely do not like GIFs. Because the problem with GIFs that I have is that if you watch it while it is somewhere in the middle of the loop, you don't really understand what is going on. So you have to wait until it ends and then figure out when it starts, and it takes too much time, I think. Something that could be done better in a short video where I can pause or whatever, or in a series of pictures. But okay, maybe there are cases where GIFs work fine, but most of the time they are a bit problematic. I use links, which is text only, so I wonder if one can switch off pics totally in EWW. Yes, in EWW you can switch off pictures. I'm not sure how you can do it though. Maybe I can check my .emacs, and maybe we can check for image, something to do with image map, max proportion. Maybe if you do the max proportion to 0, maybe that would do it. If they are larger, I'm not sure. I remember doing it once. I remember disabling all images, but eventually I found that there are various websites where images are useful, so I thought I would keep them at a smaller proportion. The nice thing in EWW, let's go to Wikipedia, for example, and let's search for I don't know, what should we search for? Let's search for an animal. Let's say, for example, penguin. Let's search for penguin. So you can see we have the Wikipedia entry on penguins. Do they have any images here? If you place the point over the image like this, You can use the minus or the plus signs to enlarge or minimize the image. So that's always something nice to do. It's nice to be able to do this inside of Emacs, very convenient. So that's another reason I have the images. So maybe you can set the proportion to something very small, I don't know, 0.2 or something. And when you see an interesting image, you can increase it in size ad hoc on the spot. So, hello from Brexit Island. Hello there, hello. Which part of the UK, if I may ask? Because, of course, there are different views depending on where you are on the island with regard to Brexit. Of course, as Theresa May famously said, Brexit means Brexit, and Brexit has meant Brexit. So this is where we are right now. I think you haven't noticed any difference in practice, especially with the pandemic going on. There would anyway be travel restrictions. So in that regard, I think you haven't noticed much of the difference. But I'm not sure how it will be felt in the years to come. I think we will have to see how that goes. Of course, the UK already was in a different status when it comes to free movement inside the European Union. I remember characteristically, I used to live in Brussels. I used to live in Belgium, in Brussels. And once I took a train from the train station of Brussels directly to London. So you go from Paris and then you pass from an underwater tunnel and you end up in London. And that happened seamlessly. I just needed to show my ID card when I bought the ticket from the train station. But when I was on my way back, there was border controls. The process was a bit more involved, for better or worse. And that was in 2013, I believe. So anyhow, before Brexit. Hello from Israel. Hello there from Cyprus. Cyprus is, in case you don't know, is an island in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we have a map over here. Maybe it shows Cyprus, or even though penguins don't live there. But anyway, suppose that you can see Cyprus somewhere over there. I can search for it, but no, it doesn't really matter. So Cyprus is the third largest island in the Mediterranean. The first one is Sicily in Italy, and the other one is Sardinia, also in Italy. And then it's Cyprus, and then after that, I think it's Crete in Greece. And then I don't know which one. Hello from the Somerset Isle. Somerset Isle, this rings a bell, but I'm not sure. Is that in the English channel? Now we can of course search for it. Let's search for Wikipedia again. Somerset Isle. Where is that? Isles. It says here. So there are plenty. Does not exist. Maybe I wrote it wrong. Maybe it's with one M. Okay. Let's see. Maybe now it's Isle. Sorry about that. What am I doing wrong? Okay, anyhow, your island does not exist according to Wikipedia. Something about Elder Scrolls. What is that? Elves? Okay, so I don't think you live with dark elves. Okay, so that must be a book or something, or I don't know. Maybe a game, or yes, online. Yeah, online studio. So maybe that's a game. So you live inside of a game world according to Wikipedia. So, what do we have? Hello from Brazil. Bom dia, bom dia. Shalom. Shalom, I think it means hello, right, in Hebrew. But I'm not sure. I don't know Hebrew. Can Emacs really be called minimal? Well, of course, it depends on how you use it. That's the thing. It is fairly minimal out of the box. And then you can load more libraries as you go. You can load 100 packages if you want, or 1,000, or you can just use it without any extra loaded packages. And if you really care about, for example, I hear this argument, oh, but Emacs comes loaded with games like Tetris or stuff like that. Those are just bundled up together with the package, with the tarball. they are not really loaded. So I am not using Tetris here. I am not loading it. It just exists over there. And the reason the developers do that is because when you are introspecting Emacs, so for example, MX find library, and you can search for, maybe we can search for Tetris. You can search for the source code and see the source code there. So if I understand this correctly, the reason all those games and other such software are bundled together with the Emacs tarball is because they offer a good implementation. So for example, if you want to write a game with eLisp, you can take a look at this and figure out what they are doing and draw inspiration from it and maybe learn something new and then go on to make your own version of a game. I have never checked the source code of Tetris, by the way, but it looks fairly short. Only 650 lines with comments and documentation. Okay, that's quite impressive. So, okay, if something like Tetris, which may be 500 lines of code, is a problem, if you care that much about it, then of course you can fork Emacs, remove those files, and build the tarball, and there you go. I think nothing prevents you from that. The code is free software, the GNU General Public License. But in summary, yes, Emacs is literally a Lisp, specifically interpreter, nothing else. So yes, other folks here comment on this point as well. Message retracted. Séverin Durand, oh, hello, bonjour, bonsoir, bonsoir in your part of the world. I hope you are doing well. So yes, it's nice to do a live stream and see familiar names in the live chat. Of course, it's impossible to coordinate with everyone because the Emacs community, or everyone who could be watching this, is all over the world. So we have people from the Far East to the West, so, and everything in between. So it's really impossible. So I just have to pick a time that suits my day, my agenda, my timetable, and then work around it. The good thing is that this presentation is recorded, so of course it doesn't really matter at what time you will watch this. I have an Emacs setup running on an old P2 Sony laptop with only 350 megabytes of RAM. Okay, that's impressive. Very impressive. If only the Acme editor wasn't mouse driven. I have heard about Acme, but I have not used it. I have not tried it before. I used the editors that I used was before I switched to Vim, that is. I tried for a while Atom, GitHub's Atom, which in hindsight is something I am glad I left fairly early in my journey towards free software. Before 2016, before I switched to GNU Emacs, I wasn't really tech savvy, so I knew just the basics, but then I decided to make the switch and start learning all those tools. So the first tool I found was Atom because, of course, GitHub is massive, so it was everywhere, but then I discovered Vim, so I went with Vim, and my Vim setup was very straightforward. I didn't have any. Do I have my vimrc over here, by the way? Vimrc, yes, of course. So this is my vimrc. It's the last version from 2019, 600 words altogether. So this is my vimrc. So my vimrc, after the first initial months where I was blindly copy-pasting stuff from the internet and had no idea what I was doing, afterwards I started reading the docs, as should always be the case, and then I consolidated around those variables over here. And so I had Vim running in a very basic setup, and I was using it together with Tmax, and then all the CLI tools and the ncurses libraries, ncurses applications like Mat, Museboat, etc. NC, MP, C++, and MPD for my music, which, by the way, I think is not a good setup if all you want is to play back local music. If you have something more elaborate, I think it's great, but for a basic setup, it's not really required. Let's see, I think I missed something. It scrolled. I missed it. Sorry. Where are we? What happened? Okay, here we are. Adam Omaran says, you have to work for the good things. Yes, of course. I think I missed another one. Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you too. So I suppose you are further to the east from where I am. We can always do MX World Clock. I'm just typing it out for you to see. And I have configured some time zones here. And I have an overview of where we are. I should include some more. I think I'm missing something. I think I don't have from India. From the Indian subcontinent, but I think maybe Yekaterinburg would be that time zone. Shanghai may be further to the east. So maybe I am missing at least one time zone here. I should add that as well. But okay, this is nice to have an overview. Is anyone from Vladivostok? I don't think so, but that would be great. So yeah, let's close that. So here it's a 1:45 right now. Okay, let's proceed with the chat. Good presentation. Thank you very much. Petition for debate, Luke Smith versus Protesilaos Stavru. Well, it's not so much as a debate. I think it would be, debate is kind of a misunderstood word because of how we use it in politics. So in politics you have debate and it's really a battle. So you have two sides and they can never agree with each other. One has to cancel the other out. Whereas a debate, the way I understand it, so as I said earlier, dialectically, so the way I understand a debate is an exchange of views in an open, towards an open-ended discussion. So we are not really trying to win the argument. That's not the point of a debate. That's not a point of dialectics. What we are trying to do is we are trying through a dialogue, through an exchange of views, to approximate the truth. So what is the truth of the matter that we are discussing? That's kind of what a debate is. And in doing that, one side will put forward a certain thesis, the other side will put their own thesis, and in Greek this is called an antithesis, and we have those same words in English. And maybe if we are both open-minded and reasonable, we will arrive at a synthesis. And of course this is also another word that we find in English. So that's how I see it. And of course Luke Smith of course is using Vim and or the other accoutrements, but Luke is definitely a reasonable person, and I'm sure we would be able to have a debate, no question about that. Debate in the sense that I am saying, I'm not speaking about a battle of wits. I am not in that kind of business. I don't care about how politicians debate. If this, by the way, is called, let's write the word so that you can see it, heuristic. This is a word in Greek. Heuristic means when you are combative, and this is the opposite. Maybe we can do it like this. Oh, sorry. I am typing in org. So heuristic is the opposite of dialectical. So if you are doing heuristics, if you are being combative, you are not doing dialectics. So you are not really there for the argument. You are just there to win applause, to win the argument, and to tell your friends how cool you are. I am not interested in heuristics. I am interested in dialectics. So I think that's an important distinction to make. Good presentation, by the way. Thank you very much. Pavel Makic says, love the stream, Prot, very good points. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching. Thank you, Sever, good presentation. Thank you, Sever, actually. Sever Durand, maybe, if we want to pronounce it in French. Noble and Savage. One of my favorite pieces you've written is about Batman supremacy. I think I'm not sure what you're talking about, because I write a lot, that's the problem. But it must be something about politics and something to do with superheroes, right? I think I have it. On the underlying values of superhero culture, of course. So do I have Batman over here? So yeah, there is something about Batman over here, but I don't remember this exact expression, Batman supremacy. But maybe I have elaborated on this point. So yeah, it's an essay, less than 2,000 words. You can check it out as well. So yes, I think that there are lots of topics I want to cover in my political writings, but there is simply not enough time for them. I mean, I have, let's go again to my website. I shouldn't be closing it since I visited the whole time. So you can see that there is always, this is latest updates across the website. So there is always something on the feed all the time. But of course, what I am doing most these days is on the code blog rather, and my books. So just if you check my books, for 2021, you can see that already we have a lot going on here, and some of them are very large documents, larger rather, not very large. For example, I published this one 6 days ago, and it's 7,500 words almost. The one I published a month ago is about 8,000 words, so you get the idea. So when you are writing all those things, and it's not just the words, of course, right? Because it's also the substance. It's not just typing out 8,000 words. You have to really think things through. So it's much more difficult than just writing things down. So when you spend all your time with this and with the code blog over here, so like with what I am doing now, there isn't that much time for politics, unfortunately. And when I do politics, it's political theory mostly. I don't really write about party politics, what X person wrote on Twitter, what Y person replied on Facebook, and so on. I don't care about that. For me, that's not interesting at all. And this is one of the reasons why I quit my career in politics. I used to work in Brussels at the European Parliament, but I wasn't really a good fit for it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that I had to work with those minutiae the whole time. So after a few years, I quit. Even though I could have stayed and get a lucrative wage and whatnot, but for me, happiness is more important, and integrity is more important than money or fame or whatnot. Let's see, I have your website bookmarked, Prot. There's some interesting stuff on there. Thanks very much. Yeah, I think there is a lot to read. What is interesting, of course, is up to the person who reads it, but I think there is at least something for everyone, or at least for a variety of people, for a diverse group of people. So they are greeting each other here, which is very nice. I will switch to Emacs. Emacs. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be something else, but I'm not sure. So we have a retracted message here. Maybe it was a typo and you want to edit it. My mistake. I thought the 296 referred to something else. I tried Emacs many moons ago. Okay, felt I needed to use Vim for the last 2 years. Made me switch to vanilla Emacs recently with Prot, David Wilson from the System Crafters channel. System Crafters is a channel mostly about Emacs. They also do about GNU Geeks and related issues, but it's mostly Emacs stuff. And David has you covered for everything from advanced, from beginner to advanced. You are good with David Wilson. Same for Mike Zamansky, of course. Mike has all sorts of videos on Emacs. I think the channel is exclusively about Emacs, but I'm not sure right now. And there are others for sure, yes. And I am loving it. Okay, that's good to know. EWW has a function, EWW toggle images, of course. Yes, of course, there is that as well. And there is also another one, which is to enable readable mode. So you remove the sidebars and all the other things you don't need. But maybe I think they meant they want to disable images at the outset. So no images at all. But of course, you can always configure that. Hello Matthew Bryson. Hi from Omaha. I think that's in the United States. I'm not sure. Just woke up. I'm happy to be able to hang out. Let's check where Omaha is. Maybe you can do with DuckDuckGo this time. Visit Omaha, yeah, Nebraska. Okay. Good morning to you in Nebraska, in Omaha. So here we are almost 2 o'clock. It's almost 2 o'clock here. So it's nice that you woke up to catch the stream, but of course it is being recorded, so you can view it at a later point. Okay, so what we have here, how can I toggle display images? Emacs, Stack Exchange page. So yeah, of course. You can always search for this kind of questions. That's the thing. But if we have the answer right away, that's also convenient. In Sheffield, okay. I'm very much in the pro-European camp. Worked many years for a German engineering company. Oh, I see. Okay, very interesting. I've been to the United Kingdom in total, I think, thrice. 2 times when I was a kid, and once when I was that what I mentioned earlier, where I took the train for Brussels and went to London. Once I went to Birmingham, and the other times I was in London. So that's something I haven't visited much of the country. I would have loved to, because generally I like a natural environment. So I'm not really a fan of large cities, London included. I'm not a huge fan. So I would like to explore the countryside of the UK and go through all those fields and rolling hills and pristine beaches. I'm sure it will be a lovely country. Cyprus here is also a nice country, but it is much smaller, of course, and in that regard it is less diverse. In Greece, from where I am from, there also are many points of interest, many nice places, but it depends, of course, where you are and where you go. So yes, let's see, Somerset Isles referring. Okay, being the suns. Okay. I learned something new today. Okay, that's nice to know. Nice to know indeed. Scotland here, but originally from southern England. Okay, very nice. I think I had. I'm trying to think now if a friend of mine was from Scotland or northern England or in the border. I'm not sure right now, but I have to think about it. I don't know someone from Scotland 100%. I haven't met any Scots person before. Like salam alaikum literally means peace be upon you. Okay, but it is used like hello. Okay, that's it. Very interesting, because in Greek we say yasu, which is a variant of iyia shu. So this means iyia is health and shu is the second person. So health to you. So that's very interesting that we have the same way of saluting each other. Irek, hello Emacs wizards. To disable rendering of images in EWW and other buffers that render HTML with the SHR library. So this is the simple HTML renderer that is built into Emacs. You can set the variable. Okay, see, I remember there was a variable SHR inhibit images to true. So yes, I remember there was a variable, but so that's always something for you to do. Yunus Emre Can Saribiyik, I'm not sure I pronounced that word right. Hello from Turkey. Hello from Cyprus. So I have many friends from Turkey, actually, from Turkey and also from the Turkish-speaking parts of Cyprus. But due to political reasons, always the situation is a bit complicated. But I think we can always look beyond politics and find points of interest, and from there develop relationships on a human basis, and don't worry too much about arbitrary lines on a map. So that's very nice to see. So hello again. Free as in freedom says hi from Spain. Hello there. I am here thanks to the org agenda notifications. That's very nice indeed. Yes, I am experimenting with the org agenda. I still don't have much going on. My life is not really eventful, so I don't really need the org agenda. I'm using the diary rather, so the basic diary. But I am experimenting with the org agenda because, of course, I am developing the themes and they have to look well for the org agenda, of course. And just earlier, this happened. Do I have it over here? Maybe here. So I have submitted a patch together with Gustavo Barros. We prepared some changes, we discussed some changes, and I submitted a patch, and the org maintainer accepted it. It relates to the org agenda, so more on that. After I conclude this video, I will write a follow-up patch to write a news entry in the changelog, so what this patch is about, so you can find that soon enough. Org 9.5 will be releasing soon, so that's always good to have in advance of the new release. Any opinions on Bongo, Mingus, Simple, MPC, etc.? I have been using Bongo. I think Bongo, just for you, in case you don't know, Bongo is a package for Emacs. It's an eLisp file. I have been using Bongo. I think it's one of, if not the first package that I started using, and it's the only package perhaps that I have been using from day one until today. So it just worked for me. I added some extensions over time. It continues to work for me. So I see no reason to try and experiment with alternatives. Simple MPC. So MPC, I think, is a hint to the fact that it interfaces with the music player daemon, so with MPD. And for me, there is no need for such a setup, as I noted earlier, because all I do when I am browsing, when I am loading my music, is I go to my files. I have videos on the matter. I don't want to show them now. I go to my file browser, to dir, the directory editor of Emacs, and I just select the tracks or albums that I want, the directories, the folders, and I just enqueue them and they start playing. So that's all I want. I don't really need a daemon process. I don't really need something beyond the basics. So if I can get the basics right, and if I have all the convenience I need, then the rest is extra. And for my particular needs in this specific setup over here, it is not really required. So I don't have an opinion. This thing scrolls a screen full, so I'm not sure where we were. Okay, here we are. Free as in freedom, same. Thanks, I'm doing well, says Doron. Incidentally, David Wilson, System Crafters, is moving to Greece. Maybe you could do a stream together. Oh, wow, that's excellent news. But I am in Cyprus, so the time zone is the same. So in that regard, we could collaborate. That would be great. I could get in contact with him. I would be thrilled to do a stream with David. I'm a fan of what David does with Emacs. There are also those other videos about geeks, but I have not watched those, not because I dismiss them, but simply because even though I have been aware of geeks since the early days of its inception, I am really all about stability. I don't want to experiment too much with my operating system. So I am either Debian or Arch Linux. So that's where I have been oscillating between those two distros, and now for the last year and a half, maybe I am on Arch exclusively. But if I were to switch for whatever reason, it wouldn't be geeks, but maybe some other time. So yeah, I should check with David. That would be very nice if we could do something together. It would also be nice if I could meet in person. If we could meet in person, that would be absolutely fantastic. So Duron says, an imaginary question. If you were to write a text editor from scratch, what functionalities would you add, assuming that you are a good programmer and have infinite time? I think that's a good thing to think about, because if you start thinking about features, so what the kind of ordeal I went through with the Markdown editors, I am interested in spell checking, for example. Someone else may not be interested. I am interested in being able to change the colors. Someone else may not be interested. I am interested in this or that or the other. And someone else may not have that requirement. So if you really think about it, the best text editor is one that is extensible. So if I need to have those features that I want, I can write extensions for it, and then I have exactly what I am looking for. If someone else does not need it, then they do not have to write that extra piece of code, or they don't have to use my code. So for example, when I am doing here, so you see here, this text over here, this is just org mode, what I have here in this buffer. If I want to center it, and if I want to have those pseudo slides, I have to use extensions that other people wrote. These are optional, you don't have to use them, but if you want those extra features, so if I want to have this, I have to use the other people's code, or I have to write the code myself. So you get those nice little extras, you make it look a bit more professional or more like a presentation, even though of course I understand it is a wall of text, but you know what I mean. It's not the same as just reading from a file like this and you have to go from one heading to the next. Of course, you could do it like this as well. You could go from one heading to the next and then do it like that. And if you want to optimize it, you can have a function where you move to the next heading and then it immediately moves that heading to the top. I do it, for example, when I am jumping headings. Look at this. If I want to jump, for example, to this one, it will take it to the top right away. But this is, of course, something that you can configure. And by the way, jumping headings. This is again another function, so it's again optional. What is also another optional feature is those stripes that I have. So you can see it's easier for me to follow the lines. Maybe here it's not very efficient, but maybe if you do it with buffers and you have this information, again optional, again an extension that someone wrote. So it's nice to have those stripes. So yes, the way I understand it, if you were to write a text editor, the only way to ensure that you don't have to implement everything is for you to make it extensible and let others deal with that. So that's why I think Emacs is excellent in that regard. Funnily enough, I am from Yekaterinburg. Okay, that's great news. I have a friend from Yekaterinburg. I don't speak Russian though, so sorry about that. City famous internationally only for its time zone. Okay, if you can elaborate on that, I would be interested. I know it from my friend, but if you could explain what that is about, because I have no idea. Maybe you mean that it's on the same latitude with other countries, but it has a different time zone, maybe something like that, but I'm not sure. System Crafters is great. It's the main reason I still use Emacs, says Eric Lundstedt. I used Atom for a while too. It's pretty good for a non-GNU project, lol. So yeah, of course, as I said, System Crafters, so will David has you covered for everything, and you can find everything there. There are other videos, of course. There are also videos that I do, videos that Mike Zamansky does. So there is a bit of everything. And also, if you check Sasha Chua's weekly newsletter on Emacs News, you can find search for Sasha Chua. It's written like this. Maybe we can have it like this. Sasha, maybe, I think. Now I'm not sure either. You see what the problem is when you try to be helpful. Let's search for Sasha Chua. So yeah, so this is the one. You can find it, and that way you will Sasha Chua blog. Okay. And Sasha Chua has this weekly newsletter about everything that happens in Emacs land, and you can also find resources there, articles, people, other people who do videos, and discussions on Reddit, and the mailing lists of Emacs, and so on and so forth. System H says, I've been enjoying your content. Emacs brings me to you several months ago. Thank you from Morocco. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad that I am being helpful. I think when you learn something, I think I have written about this at length, but to put it here in a nutshell, I think when you learn something, the best thing you can do, the moral thing to do is to disseminate the knowledge, to share the know-how so that others can benefit from what you have learned. I don't think that knowledge should be hidden somewhere and be made exclusive for some elite or some closed group or something. I don't really think that. I think if we can share, if we can contribute to a common stock of knowledge, we all get the chance to share from that common stock of knowledge and flourish individually and collectively. And I think that's part of having a great civilization and an improved outlook for humanity. Ramin says, good evening from Tokyo. Okay, I love your content, Prod. I am glad I was able to catch your stream today. That's good to know. Thank you very much. In Tokyo, what's the time right now? Let's do the world clock again. In Tokyo, it's 10 past 8 right now. So it was 7 o'clock when I started. So that's the perfect time, I guess, to watch a video on a Sunday afternoon. Matthew again says, yes, right in the center of the USA. Okay, that's good. I have never been to the Mediterranean, and I will certainly rewatch the stream. I'm an Emacs beginner. Your videos have been helpful and enjoyable. So helpful and enjoyable. That's good to know. Thank you. The Mediterranean is a wonderful part of the world. Of course, I've been to other places as well, such as in Western Europe or Northern Europe, and I like those as well. But I think the Mediterranean is a place where that a lot of people appreciate, and not just the people who live in the Mediterranean. So if you ever make it here, I think you will have a great time. Wherever you go, it doesn't really matter. It can be in the Southern Europe, it can be in Turkey, it can be in Northern Africa. So you have lots of options. It's a wonderful place. And Nasser Alkmin says, do you have a favorite writer? Like a contemporary writer, I can't think of one right now. Most of what I read from contemporary sources is news. So news and opinion pieces, mostly on politics and the right and the like. I haven't read that much of that many books in a long time, and the reason is that the books are expensive. And they are expensive because of shipping costs and everything, so it's hard to find them. And if I go to some library here in Cyprus, I live in a mountain, by the way, so I have to go to the city. And if I go to some library here in Cyprus, usually the only books that they have are the kind of novel that you read in an evening at the seaside and you forget about it the next morning. So I don't really care about those books. I need something more in-depth, and those are hard to find. But I would be definitely interested to read more contemporary writers. When it comes to the classics, I have read a lot of economics, of course, lots of work on economics from let's say from the time of Adam Smith and onward, but also earlier sources as well, and contemporary writers in economics and related issues. When it comes to philosophy, it's mostly Plato, as they call him in English, Aristotelis in Greek, and the others of that era. But of course, there is much more to read, so I definitely want to read much more. So I wouldn't say I have a favorite writer. I would say that my favorite style of writing is when you are not trying to obfuscate your meaning. And there are specific texts in philosophy that are like that, and I don't like them, where it's very elaborate, it's intricate, and I think that it is doing a disservice to what the message is. I think when you really understand something, I think you can communicate it in plain terms. It's not that the concepts will be easy. Of course, if you are dealing with something very abstract, you need to have someone who can think things through. So the concepts will be difficult, but the language should not be a problem. That's what I think. It should not be a barrier to entry. And this is the kind of style that I don't like. And the kind of style that I like is one where there is clarity of concept, precision of statement. And this is what I really like about, for example, the old philosophers. They were in that style. And the modern philosophers who were in that style, for example, Bertrand Russell was like that, mostly just state the point and don't try to hide behind elaborate linguistic constructs. But of course, I haven't read that much of Bertrand Russell. It's on my to-do list. And not just Bertrand Russell, that was just an example. Have you considered, this thing scrolls a lot, a K-monad, having control-alt met modifiers on a number row while preserving numbers is just one selling point I can think of. I don't know what K-monad is, so I will have to look that up. K-monad. K-monad is an advanced tool that lets you infinitely customize and extend the functionalities of almost any keyboard. Okay, now I am interested. I have a generic keyboard that I bought from a toy store. So I bought it for €7 and it has been going strong for several years now, and it's kind of amazing. I wasn't expecting it when I bought it. So where is it? K-monad, an advanced tool. So I will have to check that and I will have to report back to you. But definitely if I can do some optimization at the keyboard level, that would be wonderful. Of course, I would be interested in that. As well as MX on the home row. So MX on the home row, that would be interesting to see. Thanks for sharing. Oh, Didak says, hello, Prot. Hello there, and it's nice to see you again. Have you considered using OpenBSD? I can often find, I kind of find it similar to Emacs in terms of integration. All the included programs, libraries, and especially documentation are thought to work together. I have heard great things about OpenBSD, and it is definitely on my radar. I would definitely want to check it out, definitely. But it's just a matter of finding the right moment for it, because not only you need 1 day or two, I don't know how much it will take to install the system and everything up, but then you really need to commit to it, to learn it from the inside out. When I approach an issue, I don't want to approach it superficially. I don't just want to install OpenBSD and then forget about it, go on with what I was doing before. I want to install it and then try to live the OpenBSD way, if that makes sense. So like how I did with Emacs, I switched to Emacs and I started from scratch, and I tried to do Emacs from scratch, try to learn everything and work my way from there. So definitely OpenBSD is an excellent candidate, an excellent choice, and I will be very interesting to check it out. Also because most of what I do over here, I'm sure it would be possible to do with OpenBSD. I just use Emacs full screen most of the time. Now is an exception, now that I have this window over here and this Chromium tab over here. It works, by the way. So that's fine, but this is the exception. The norm is just me using Emacs. You can see even for web browsing, I use EWW, and if something really needs a web browser, only then I will switch to a web browser. So yes, at some point, OpenBSD will definitely come into my life. Have you used, Eric Lundstedt asks, whether I have used Emacs Speedbar. Yes, of course, and this is one of the good things of writing themes for Emacs, so the Modus themes that I have written, because you have to try every single package out there. Otherwise, you cannot write faces for it, and if you cannot write faces for it, then someone will come and ask, why isn't your theme supporting Speedbar or whatever? So you have to be proactive and you have to learn about everything. So that kind of helped me in my journey to Emacs. Speedbar is like Speedbar and iMenu, they are related. So you can have an outline of your document, for example, but I have, for example, one command over here. So you can have an outline of your document in Speedbar. Now I don't do that, this is an occur buffer. But you can have an outline and you can use it like a sidebar for points of interest in what it is that you are doing. It's quite helpful, but normally I just work with buffers like this. So like this. And by the way, the font size here is too large right now. Normally this is my font size. So maybe I will have 2 or 3 windows like this, or maybe something like this, depending on what I am doing. This is how I work. I don't really like sidebars and many things that are persistent. If I need something, I can bring it into focus. I can retrieve the information however I want. But normally this is how I roll. Let's enlarge the fonts again. By the way, this font resizing is one of my functions. If you check my .emacs, there is a prot fonts, and you can check how I am doing things there. Yorgos Lissandrou says hello as well from Cyprus. Hello, Yorgo. Hello, it's nice to see you here. Nice to see someone from Cyprus, of course. I think there is very few of us here. I have been living in Cyprus for many years now, so it's a nice place. I live in the mountains, Troodos. So if you ever come by, I would be happy to meet you. It's nice to meet another Cypriot and Emacs user. I mean, what are the chances? So Ramin says, I'd write an Emacs-like editor in Haskell because the type safety in the programming language is a feature that most other text editors do not have. Okay, so that's very interesting. I don't know anything about Haskell. All I know is that it has this aura around it, like it is supposed to be difficult or it is supposed to be great for mathematicians, but I don't really know. All I know from Haskell is that Xmonad, which is a tiling window manager, is written in Haskell, and Xmonad is supposed to be a powerhouse of a window manager, an excellent window manager. So of course, if you can write something like Xmonad in Haskell, I'm sure you can write something like Emacs in Haskell. As for whether type safety, I don't know. I'm not a programmer, even though I am becoming familiar with all those concepts as I go. I still have a long way to cover, so I still have a long way to go. Say you stopped using pulse line, maybe re-enable it just for presentations. You mean this pulse line? Sorry, I am using it, but maybe I did something wrong, so I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe you want when I am doing the presentation, so like this, maybe it should be pulsing as well. Maybe something like that. That would be a good idea, actually. So I will do it because, for example, I have it when I jump to a heading. So let's say I want to say let's say I want to go to context. So like this, I go like this, it will pulse as well. But maybe you are referring to some other feature. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, I like the idea, so I would like to have it as well. Especially since you say re-enable. So I assume I had that, but maybe I made some mistake and I removed it. Durand says, thanks for the response. You are welcome. Sasha Chua is also on YouTube. Yes, of course. And there are lots of videos to check there. There is a backlog and very many interesting discussions with the maintainer of Emacs, with the creator of org mode, and with many other people from the Emacs community. Lots of interesting talks over there. You should definitely check Sasha's YouTube channel as well. Sasha should be doing live streams as well, but my understanding is now that there is a kid growing up, it's kind of difficult due to life commitments. But at some point, I think Sasha will be available, will be back in the scene for more videos and everything else. Yorgos asks, what music do you enjoy? Usually I listen to music that is just the music. So it's everything from ambient to electronic to acoustic guitar. For me, the most important thing is that it's music playing and not people singing. That's the most important thing, because usually when I listen to music, I am also doing something on the computer. When I am coding, I can listen to music. That's perfectly fine, but I don't like lyrics. So when I am coding, I am listening to music and it's just the music playing. When I am not coding, when I am just relaxing, I will also have music with lyrics. For example, I am a fan of Vasilis Papakonstantinou, among many others. From the rock scene, I really like the rock scene. But I have a wide variety of music in my collection. I have Paco de Lucia, so flamenco, the virtuoso, the guitar. Paco is a legend, of course, Paco de Lucia. I have, let's say, Ibrahim Malouf, so the French Lebanese jazz player, excellent, top notch. From acoustic guitar, Estas Tone is very interesting. You can check that out. Let's see what else we have. Electronic, maybe I should be writing them down. I don't want to show you my music collection over here because maybe I have something that shouldn't be on display. So let's do it like this. I can write some over here. So let's say Atra Eterna. So this is electronic. Let's increase the font size. Another one, which is a Spanish musician, it's Sode, is also electronic. Estas Tone. This is acoustic guitar. What we have, so as I said, Paco de Lucia. Oh, not Lu. Oh, how do you do it? Maybe like this. Okay. So Paco is a myth, of course, a legend. What else do we have? As I said, Vasilis Papakonstantinou, you know that already. Tripes, the Greek rock band from yesteryear that don't exist anymore. Tripes and Xylina Spathia, those are excellent. And many others, but I forget about them right now. I also listen to more extreme for some people. So, for example, Kavir or what is it, Varathron, and many others. These are the death metal scene of Greece, and there are others as well. But yeah, you get an overview over here. And also I have, what else? I'm trying to think now. There's also instrumental rock. I really like instrumental rock. For example, King Mountain. And we also have Adam, but they write it with a Greek L. So it's like this, that they write it. So they write it like that, but it's Adam. You can search for those on Bandcamp. Except for Paco, everyone else is on Bandcamp. It's Adam. Then we have who else? Universal Hippies, I think it's called. That's also good. We have, let's see, we have for some other kind of music, Peia Lucy, I think it's written like this. You can search for her. We have, what is it? Danit, again. Those are mantras mainly, so it's kind of therapeutic music. Istvan Sky, this is a Hungarian musician. Again, this is kind of meditative, spiritual music, very, very nice as well. I also like jazz. There is Odysseas Toumazou, which is a Cypriot, sorry, Toumazou, like this. Odysseas Toumazou. There is another Greek jazz player, Kyriakos Sfetsas. And there are many others, but okay, I think you get the idea. It's a bit of everything. There is more than one answer to life, and of course I should include Michel Gurevich as well. Michel is, I like Michel a lot. You have to check it out. So yeah, this is something to get you started. Woolcrit says, hey man, I am also living in Nicosia. Okay, so there's 3 of us now. That's that's great news. Nicosia is about, what, 3 hours from here, from where I am, maybe 2.5, maybe 3, depending on the traffic, I guess. So yes, Cyprus is a small island, of course, but you can go around the island in a single day maybe. But of course, you really have to spend time in each place, so you don't want to just be in a car or a bus or whatever. Hyung Lee Lu says, hello from Australia. So glad to have you as part of the Emacs community. You introduced me to Embark, Marginalia, etc., which had a big impact on my Emacs learnings. Okay, that's very nice. Thank you very much. So in Australia, what's the time zone over there? I have no idea, to be honest. And I don't have it configured in my word clock. But maybe it's something like Tokyo time, or maybe something like that. But Australia, the difference is that the weather is different there. So here we are approaching, or we have entered autumn. So I think in Australia now it's springtime, right? As for Marginalia, Embark, and all the others, I am using them to this day. I think they are excellent packages. Again, as with everything, they are optional, but I think they really enhance the experience. Embark is a genius package from Omar Antolin Camarena. Marginalia is also by Omar and Daniel Mendler. Daniel is another powerhouse when it comes to writing packages. Every one of Daniel's packages is excellent. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. Whether it is Consult, whether it is Corfu, the package, not the island, whether it is Vertigo, and of course, Daniel is the commentator of Marginalia, and there are other packages as well. Do you identify with one side of the contemporary left-right dichotomy, or, as I get the impression, you take points from both sides? I think, and this is something you can find elsewhere as well, the left and right dichotomy, the left and right spectrum is not really informative. It's not really helpful. It is a good approximation just to make things practical for us when we are thinking about politics, but especially when you start looking into the details of what people are saying, you will often find that it doesn't make sense. This topographic, this geography-like view of politics, where if you have one specific view, you belong to this side of the house. If you have another view, you belong to the other side of the house. This doesn't really work in practice because many views, many opinions are nuanced. So maybe something will have elements, let's say, of conservatism, and also be progressive in another regard. So what is that? Is that leftist? Is it right-wing? What is it? And there are many cases like that. And it's always difficult to just pinpoint them and put them on a continuum, on a spectrum. So I think you really have to be more specific about what specifically you believe in, and less about the labels. So if we go by the labels, I am left-wing, I am a leftist. But I think that would do a disservice to what I am saying, because if we check your average leftist, it doesn't exist, but let's imagine an average leftist, I will probably disagree with them on most issues. So even though the label says leftist, the substance is different. So we have to always check the substance, we have to check the views one by one. Of course, in politics, the problem we have, as I said earlier, with dialectics, in politics, we don't have a dialectical attitude. We have heuristics. It's what I mentioned earlier. We have people fighting each other. So that's the problem. That's the problem. So if you say you are a leftist, then someone will point a finger and say, oh, this guy is this and that and the other. And we are the opposite. So we cannot agree ever. We are sworn enemies. And I think that is a harmful attitude. It doesn't really help us. And one of the reasons we are in this mess on many issues as a humanity is because we are doing too much of combative politics instead of constructive, collaborative politics. And this, of course, applies to real-world politics, such as, for example, the issues we have here in Cyprus or in other parts of the world, in nearby and further away. If we were more cooperative, many things would not be a problem at all, like not at all. Speaking of marginalia, I don't seem to get very much information from LSP mode or EGLOT within the Corfu pop-up completion. I think I have that correct. I may be wrong about the packages. Maybe, assuming you have configured it correctly, maybe this is worth reporting on the Corfu issue tracker. I think Daniel will know what to do with that, because I don't use EGLOT or LSP mode, so I don't know what to say about this. EGLOT or LSP are front ends for language servers, the language server protocol. So if you are a programmer, you will be using those, I presume. As I said, I just code for recreational purposes. It's just some eLisp and some shell scripts for my dot files, and that's all. Nothing too fancy. Yorgos says, I would be very happy to meet you in beautiful Protaras. Beautiful indeed, beautiful. I used to work in Protaras for many years, in Pernera as well, for many years when I was a university student here. I was a university student in Nicosia. And I used to work in Protaras, the broader region, for many years over there. But we can discuss the details in person at some point, of course. I would be happy. So Protaras, in case you don't know, is to the east of the country, southeast, and it's a wonderful area by the sea. It's a hotspot for tourists. So of course, okay, maybe not now with the pandemic, but in general. Eric Lundstedt, the one issue I've had with Speedbar is the lack of integration with other packages. Most packages integrate with Emacs or NerdTree. I think the reason for that is that Emacs is a bit obscure, and I think if we were to start using it, maybe I could start using it. If we were to raise awareness about it, then maybe we would have more packages integrating with it. There is another package called Dired Sidebar or something like that, so you can look that up in case you want something like Dired, DRED, in case it's not clear, DRED, the directory editor of Emacs. So maybe you want something like that for a sidebar, but you can always check. But yeah, it's unfortunate that Speedbar is not as well known as it could be. But I don't know that much about it either, to be honest, because, as I said, I don't use a sidebar. So Rudolf Adamkovich, who is also active on the issue tracker of my Modus themes, and I am most thankful, by the way, for all the issues. Everyone who reports an issue, or more so if you send patches for code, I am thankful because it always highlights something that I don't know, and this is something that I can then fix or adapt to it, etc. So Rudolph asks, what would you change in core Emacs if you had a magic wand that could change anything? I think I agree with what was the name now? I forget. I remember the surname. It was Metzger, which I think in German means butcher. But it was Metzger, a professor called Metzger, who did a presentation a couple of years ago on Emacs Conf 2019, I think it was. And Metzger said that basically what we need in Emacs is give me a real web browser for Emacs. So give me a real parser for web pages, so HTML. So an excellent one, a modern one, so it can parse any website. And that would be useful for email. But of course, once you have something as powerful as that, you can use it for web browsing as well. And then, of course, once you have something that can parse a modern web page, then of course the possibilities are practically endless. Of course, I understand the problems with going down that path. Again, this is a magic wand, so I'm not worrying about the technicalities, but assuming we can do it. I understand the problems with parsing JavaScript and CSS and all that, but I think the upsides would be more than the downsides. So as far as I am concerned, that would be a nice feature to have. Would I be the number one user of it? Probably not, because I am perfectly happy with my plain text or HTML, simple HTML setup over here. If I need a browser, I can use a web browser. But I think having that feature, it would be great for email, especially in a corporate environment, and then for browsing the web as well. I meant pulsing on any cursor jump, switching windows. You probably never had it enabled. So yes, as I said, I will do it. I will do it the way I do with this pulse over here. So I will do it. I can also control the delay of this pulse, so I can make it more pronounced, so it can stay longer on the screen. I can also change the color, of course. So I will make sure that this happens next time. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Wilcrit, who is in Nicosia, as we said, this thing always, sorry about that. This thing scrolls a bit weirdly, so I cannot find it. So, you have no idea how much your Unix philosophy integrates with BSD operating systems. Especially if you build OpenBSD, FreeBSD from scratch, it all suddenly makes sense. Linux is a literal chaos. Well, I'm sure that the BSDs are closer to the Unix spirit, and that's a huge plus in my books. And I would definitely want to try OpenBSD, as I mentioned earlier. Linux, what I think is a bit weird with Linux right now is systemd. I'm not a systemd hater, I'm not against it, as I said in my previous live stream, but I also don't see the point of integrating everything in systemd. I think it creates a monoculture, and I think that is a bit problematic. For example, I was experimenting with the Sway window manager. This is a window manager for Wayland. It is a port of i3, a rewrite of i3 rather, for Wayland, in case you don't know. What I was doing, I wanted to start, I forget right now the details, but basically I wanted to have my SSH keys available. So I wanted to start the SSH agent. Eventually, I found that I could start the GPG agent through a systemd unit or whatever it's called. So I did that, but I didn't really like it. I would prefer if I could have it another way, if I could auto start it from inside of my window manager or something like that. But I presume that OpenBSD is more Unix in that regard, and I would be interested to see how it works out. As I said, I'm not a systemd hater because, of course, I cannot write an init system. I don't understand the complexity or the specifics involved. But just as a user, I think that all those are a bit, all those uses of systemd are a bit too much. It is a monoculture. And as with real life, monoculture is bad. A monoculture is very bad for the environment, is very bad for humans, and the same is true for software. Do you have any interest in studying formal logic? Just as a hobby, just to know more about it, yes. But to really dedicate myself to it, probably no, because I think it's really another field. It's really something else altogether. It's very interesting, of course, but it's very different from what I am doing. The good thing about formal logic is that, of course, the language it uses, the mode of communication it uses is precise, unlike some texts in philosophy which are deliberately obscure, and I don't like obscurantism. No Vangelis, of course. Vangelis Papathanasiou, also known as just Vangelis. Vangelis is, of course, a living legend of electronic music, of course, no doubt about that. So thanks for that. I have a Vangelis, of course. Esta Stone, I had to go for 10 minutes and missed why this list of names is on there. Yes, sorry. I am rewinding. I'll meet you in the future. Take care. I have to go, so that's good. And I think I will have to go as well. We are closing. Emacs Conf, yes, so this is exactly Perry Metzger, exactly. Perry Metzger, this is exactly the talk. Maybe we can maybe enlarge the size. No, okay. Let's have it here. So this is the talk, the Emacs Conf presentation. This is exactly what I meant. So if I have a magic wand, this is what I would change in Emacs as a first step. Of course, maybe our wish list is endless, but I think if we were to start from something, I think this is a good place to start from. So that's all for today, folks. I think we have been going for almost 2 hours now, so oof. It was very nice. It was very nice to talk to you about Emacs and the Unix, and then to join the chat for the live chat for all those issues that you brought to my attention. And that's all for now. I think we don't have anything else. I think I didn't miss anyone. I think we covered everything. I was very careful about it, but I can check again. Just to be sure, I don't want to leave anything behind. And yes, of course, I can see it. And I think we are good to go for today, folks. I'm not sure when the next live stream will be, but I like this style of doing a presentation and then having the chat. It's easier for me. And let's see. That's watched it a few times. Yeah, the Perry Metzger. Yeah, of course. So what we have here. Bash is obsolete. Python is my new GF. That's nice. Says, hello from Britain. I have seen this before. You have commented. It's nice to see you again. Hello from Britain. I envy your good weather. It's more healthy. It is, but the problem is that we had droughts for the last 2 years. Too much sun. It's extreme sometimes. You need a bit of rain. You need a bit of the kind of British weather. Maybe not the other extreme, which is Britain, but something in between would be optimal, I think. You said that Cyprus Demos is older. What is the social role of a younger man in Cyprus? Well, if you check the politicians of Cyprus, they are all elderly people with some exceptions, and the society here is fairly traditional in that regard. So if you are 20 something, the chances of being heard in public are slim, virtually none. If you are a bit older, if you are in your 30s, again, it's very difficult. Like me, if you are in your 30s, it's difficult. If you get older, then of course there is a place for you. And I think that is unfortunate. I think when you are playing down the importance of the youth, you are missing out on their perspective, on what they bring to the table. However, having said that, I don't want to go to the other extreme of saying that everything should be about the youth and we should discard the elders. I don't mean that. I think that is extreme, because older people have a lot of accumulated experience. So ideally, what you want is a synthesis. You want to be able to integrate young people, young voices, young spirits into the body politic, but you also want the more experienced heads to stick around. As for politics, I myself am not involved in politics. I am too much of a recluse to do that. I prefer solitude. I prefer to be on my own. But I think people listen to me. So I guess that's a plus. But generally, I don't really do any politics. And I would rather not. I would rather stay away from it as much as I can. Of course, you never know, because sometimes things happen in life where you have to assume a role you would rather not. And in those moments, you have to rise to the occasion. Hopefully that will never happen, but I'm just saying, never say never. Great stream, man. Καλό υπόλοιπο. Thank you, Wilfried. Καλό υπόλοιπο to you too. Καλό υπόλοιπο means for the rest of the day, enjoy the rest of the day. There isn't a literal translation. Thanks, everyone. An interesting video. So with Perry Metzger. So watched it a few times. Very nice. Take care, everyone. Thank you for the streaming. See you soon. Take care. Tim van der Langenberg says, thanks for the stream. Thank you, Tim, and it's nice to see you here. Take care. Sad Face says, that's all, folks. And Pedro Moraes says, hi from Portugal. Bom dia. Thank you for everything. Your work with Emacs is great. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you. Pedro. Maybe no. I am missing the pronunciation now. Pedro Moraes. So that's one thing. Last time I was in Athens, the temperature hit 40 Celsius. Well, it also did hit 40 Celsius in Canada these days. So it shows what kind of world we are living in. Anyhow, let's hope we reverse the trends. Let's hope for the best. Bye, Prot. Bye, everyone, says Matthew. And that's all for me today, folks. I am closing this chat now. It was very nice to talk to you, and I'm happy to have done this. So bye again. Take care, folks. Stop streaming.